Every time you pay at the pump, Joe Biden did that. President Joe Biden had a choice between sticking it to Russia or sticking it to American consumers. Can you guess which one he chose? Hey, everybody, I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott, and this is Right Angle, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. And before we answer that important question, I have an important question for you. Will you hit that like button or that thumbs up button or that 5-star button or that notifications button? Do that. Did you do that? Great. You're awesome. Love you. Thanks. Bye. Anyway, gentlemen, as you're probably aware, on Tuesday, March 8th, President Joe Biden announced, I think from Texas, that he would be, of all places, that he would be suspending U.S. Purchases of Russian oil in order to punish the Russians and shut off their flow of money to support the war in Ukraine and all the rest. Texas Congressman Dan Crenshaw said Joe Biden is in Texas today, but won't meet with energy producers to find out what's needed to increase production, reduce prices, and reduce dependence on foreign oil. Instead, this White House would rather meet with Venezuela and Iran, both of whom, by the way, have, Venezuela and the Saudis have turned us down for increasing oil production. And boy, they've always been so dependable in the past. And of course, Iran, which I'll get to in just a little bit. Scott, Biden also said, and this is, I believe, a quote, the United States must become energy self-sufficient, like we were just a couple of years ago before he was installed as president. But his idea of energy independence is making everything electric, which is batteries sourced from materials with China that will then be charged by power plants that we haven't built. Do you think this is a good way to punish Russia for the invasion of Ukraine?
Well, the president himself, when he initially announced the first tranche of the sanctions, said that they wouldn't have an immediate effect. And to me, I thought that undercut the whole point of doing sanctions because, there's an old joke about a guy who rolls through a stop sign and gets pulled over by a police officer. And the officer comes up and says that he rolled through the stop sign. And he said, well, there was nobody coming. And the officer said, well, it's still illegal. You can't roll through the stop sign. And the guy said, well, I slowed down. And the police officer at that point reaches into the car, pulls the guy's head out the door and holds him in a headlock and takes out his billy club and starts knocking him on the head and says, now, would you like me to slow down or stop? And I think that's, when you impose sanctions that are going to take months to have any kind of impact whatsoever, and even then you're not sure that they'll have the desired impact. There's an old Brian Regan routine that says, do you have any so-so doctors who could treat me now instead of the doctor that I'm going to have to wait for 6 months because he's so good nobody can get in to see him? So what could we do now? And I have not been impressed. It's not necessarily anything about President Biden or the rest of the world's governments, but I've not been impressed with the power of sanctions to stop a present kinetic action from rolling forward. It seems to me that you need something much more immediate than that. And so, and then in addition to hurting U.S. consumers because we haven't done everything we can to ramp up petroleum production because we think it's destroying the planet. It's inconsistent with the president's values to say, we're going to do everything we can to make us oil energy independent. He's talking about developing, windmills and waterfalls and electric automobiles that are going to take, again, months, years, decades to develop. None of this seems like an effective way of addressing a problem when a guy is currently dropping bombs on our friends. So I don't think I think that Biden is trying to make it look like he's doing something when he's not doing something. Yeah.
And of course, oil is a commodity. Just because Russia can't sell it to us doesn't mean they can't sell it somewhere else. You can't sanction a country. You can't embargo a country as big and as energy rich as Russia. Bill, there's more going on here than just this new sanctions regime on Russia. And you've probably heard that Biden is trying to bring back the Obama's secret Iran deal on the nuclear weapons. And while all of this is going on at the same time, Biden has basically turned over our end of the negotiations with Iran to a Russian diplomat. I wish I were making this up. But listen, this is from, I can't remember which paper this was from, but Iran has refused to negotiate directly with the U.S. So other parties to the agreement, including Britain, France, Germany, Russia, China, and the EU, have served as intermediaries, the Wall Street Journal reported. Lavrov, the Russian diplomat, appeared to leverage this position to combat potential sanctions over the weekend. He said, "We have asked for a written guarantee that the current process triggered by the United States does not in any way change our right to free and full trade, economic and investment cooperation, and military technical cooperation with the Islamic State of Iran." And of course, Biden is so desperate for this renewed Iran deal that of course he's going to cave on this. So no matter what sanctions he puts on Russia, Iran is going to be effectively turned into Russia's back door to avoid the sanctions, just like China has been Iran's back door to avoid our sanctions. You know, I was going to ask you, Bill, if Biden's left hand knew what his right hand is doing, but at this point, I think it's fair to ask if his thumb knows what his little finger is doing.
Well, you can really answer this question more precisely when you realize that Biden has two left hands. That's really the answer to this issue. What you're seeing here is clash of the virtue signals, and here's basically how it works. The Democrats or the far left progressives have made the green energy deal, and the world is about to end due to global warming. That is one of their core belief systems. Joe Biden cannot possibly do anything that is pro-fossil fuels or anything like that on account of the earth is going to die. So that's one box that he's in. On the other side of the box, he's got Americans who are noticing that they're paying $5 a gallon for gas now. $2,000 a year is what I heard, an extra $2,000 a year out of pocket for your average American. He knows that's going to cream him at the polls. And then the third of his corners is he's got to be shown to be doing something against Russia. And so there's pressure on him from the left primarily and everybody to say, you can't buy oil from Russia. Let's show the Russians, we're gonna hit him as hard as we can. So where does that leave Biden? We're already buying Russian oil. If we cut that Russian oil off, that's going to raise the price of oil in the American market, right? That's catastrophic for him politically, but it's apparently not as catastrophic as it would be to go ahead and restore America's energy independence, because that goes after his far, far left wing. Those are the people who are actually calling the shots, right? You can't have America energy independent and grow and basically drill our own oil, because drill, baby, drill is what Orange Man said, also what Alaskan woman said, right? So he's in a box of his own construction, and the only thing I can tell you with certainty is he will take whichever pathway out of this that is most least damaging for him, and the American people will come in last on his list in terms of on where to make this decision. If he decides he's going to turn off the Russian oil spigot and do something else, if Americans have to pay higher gas prices, then he doesn't care. He doesn't care. It's more important to him that the green radicals and all of the anti-Trump people don't admit that we were energy independent, and we could be again essentially in a couple of weeks, by turning on the things that Joe Biden turned off on his first day in office, right? So basically there he is, Steve. He's got a situation where his first act in office was to basically cancel this pipeline, cancel all of these domestic energy sources, because he's going to provide green energy for the future. Well, that means the oil prices are going up, and that means we have to buy oil from either Iran or Venezuela or China or not China or Russia. And now those options are off the table. So he's virtue signaled himself into a box that I don't see that he can get out of. And I'll just tell you, as a kid who grew up able to remember the Arab oil embargo in 1973, and every day since then has been aware of the fact that other nations have got us, let's just say, by the neck. When it became announced during Donald Trump's presidency that the United States was energy independent, you could have knocked me over with a feather. And then a few months after that, you find out that the United States is selling oil. We're selling oil. I was like, what? This is the greatest thing for American national security since the atomic bomb. And now, gone away in order to make Greens happy about an electric green future that doesn't exist mathematically, let alone technologically.
Indeed. You know, as I said just a couple of minutes ago, oil's a commodity. If we're not going to buy oil from Russia, somebody else will, probably China. And China already buys 25 times more Russian oil than we do. So they've got a buyer. This isn't going to hurt Russia. If you want to hurt Russia, you get the price of oil down. Now, let me give you a little history lesson. This is courtesy of my friend Will Collier. He used to guest blog for me at Vodka Pun on occasion. He's got just a brilliant memory, brilliant guy. He brought us back to 2008 when oil hit record highs. I want to say it was 147, 148 bucks a barrel, just huge. And then President Bush, in the last weeks or months of his term in office, announced and signed an executive order that he was going to allow offshore drilling and was going to allow drilling on federal lands. And the price of oil immediately, like that day, began to go back down. And it's not because oil wells magically sprung up offshore or magically sprung up on federal lands. Markets don't just look at today's supply. They look at tomorrow's supply and the day after tomorrow's supply. And when George W. Bush said these things, the market said, oh, there's going to be more oil in the future, so we don't have to pay as much today. Now, Joe Biden had a similar choice. If he wanted to bring down the price of oil, if he wanted to stick it to Russia instead of sticking it to American consumers, he could make the exact same kind of speech and sign the exact same kind of order that George W. Bush did in 2008. And let me give you one more example. Do you remember when the price of oil started going up again? It wasn't when Joe Biden was sworn into office. It started going up again in late December after the election when the Supreme Court refused to hear Trump's election suit. That is when traders went, oh, Joe Biden is really going to be the next president. We've got an anti-domestic energy guy coming into office. Man, they didn't know the half of it. That's your right angle on that, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Just remember, every time you pay at the pump, Joe Biden did that. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.